All right. Before we get into our primary topic, let's jump into our module of the week and turn it over to Martin Anderson Klutz, a senior solutions engineer at Acquia and a maintainer of a number of Drupal modules and recipes of his own. Martin, what do you have for us this week?
Thanks, John. Have you ever wanted to disable hooks to accelerate your Drupal migration? There's a module for that. It's called Migrate Boost, and it was created in September of 2023 by our own Nick Laughlin. It has a 1.0.1 version available, which is compatible with Drupal 10 and 11. It is actively maintained, has security coverage, doesn't have a lot in the way of documentation, but the project page and the project README have some instructions on how to have it or get it set up. Now, it does actually have no open issues, which is pretty good considering the site is in use by 119 sites according to Drupal.org. Now, having hooks fired during a migration can significantly slow down the process. And what's worse, it can also cause some significant problems. For example, sending email notifications every time a node is created. You can disable hooks by creating an array in your settings.php file, either an array of specific hooks you want to disable or an array of modules for which you want to disable all hooks. This was a capability available for the Drupal 7 Migrate module, but hasn't been available in the Migrate API in Drupal core since version 8. So this module can be invaluable if you're working on a sizable migration. Hopefully there are a lot of folks currently working on migrations ahead of the January 5th end of life for Drupal 7. So I thought this module would be timely. So let's talk about Migrate Boost.
Wait, what? Drupal 7's end of life is in January? I have to go.
This January?
Oh, wait, what? Are we sure?
This upcoming January, really?
Oh no. Sorry. Everybody listening to this right now is starting to sweat and get nervous, and they've stopped listening because they have to go update their Drupal 7 sites. So Nick, I'm assuming, because this is a Migrate kind of add-on module, I know Martin noted that you can put an array in your settings.php, but there's no UI for this. Is there? You can't list out hooks in your UI that you want to?
No, there's no UI. And I have to preface this by saying I added this module because I have a migration that I run about once a month for a personal project that takes about 45 hours to run. And when I enable this, it cuts it from 45 hours to 30. So it's pretty nice. And when I was looking for ways to, and mainly I just needed to disable search indexing, right? Because what would happen is even though I don't have immediate indexing turned on, every time the migration updated something, it notifies the search system that, hey, this needs to be re-indexed. And that makes it very, very, very slow. So I can skip all those now. And then at the end of it, I have to re-index everything anyway. And the re-indexing, if I just call it through Drush, takes, 15, 20 minutes or something. So I was looking for a way to speed this up. And I found a GitHub project that had this module in it that referenced a sandbox that somebody had written for Drupal 8 a long time ago. And the GitHub project was only Drupal 9 ready. And so I figured I would take it, get it ready for Drupal 10, and put it out. Now, here's a big caveat. The most recent version of Drush changed most commands from the way that they used to be written to annotations. I haven't had time to spend on that project anymore. So I don't actually 100% know that this works. But it's been up, this version has been up for a few weeks and I haven't had any bug reports. But if you use this and there's an issue and it doesn't seem to be working, feel free to open an issue and I'll be happy to take a look at it. I also know that I have a big update coming for object-oriented hooks because the way that this works right now, I have a feeling will not work once hooks are object-oriented. But I do know how to fix that. So for now, I'm still maintaining it. The issue with this though is that it's just for a personal project, not client projects right now. So it's a little hard to dedicate time to maintaining it.
So Martin, I have a question, and this is one of those dumb, I'm not a developer questions. So bear with me. in Migrate, like in by itself, right? Without Boost, like wouldn't it be advantageous to have a checkbox that just shut off like hooks firing when doing a migration? Or like, are there certain hooks that you do actually need to fire when you're doing a migration to like, create different pieces of content and stuff?
Yeah, I would say there's probably the potential to skip important steps if you just sort of, as a blanket, disable all hooks entirely.
Got it.
So yeah, I would say you definitely want to be more selective in terms of being able to disable those would be, my recommendation, but probably Nick has more experience on that front than I do.
Yeah, you can't just blanket turn off hooks because, if something like Search API is probably pretty safe to just shut off in general, because especially if it's a large enough migration to make sense to enable this and configure it, you can just reindex it after. But if you have something that's like modifying some other piece of data from like an entity create hook or something, you don't want to shut those off. Things can break. So it is really a migration to migration specific um, problem. Each individual person writing the migration kind of has to make that decision.
Right. Interesting.
Now, migrations can be different, have different purposes, right? So what about a migration that you're running on a continuous basis? Like, I want to run a migration every night to pull in new content from this separate database of books or publications or something. Would this also speed up those types of migrations? Because it seems like there's a big opportunity there to speed up something that happens really often.
Yeah. So, it really depends on the size. It does speed up. It was worth it for me for that other project because it saved hours of time. But now that it exists, the configuration is pretty easy. You really just install it, enable it, and add an array, I think, to your settings.php. So I saved 30% of the migration time. I don't know, your mileage may vary, but is that worth the 15 minutes it takes to set this up? Probably. You're using less resources. It's better, it's better for everybody. But, the reason why I created it, well, I didn't create, the base one, but the reason why I ported it and released it on Drupal.org was specifically because I was tired of waiting 2 full days for the migration to finish. 30 hours is still a long time, but it's less than 45 or 40 or whatever it was.
So Nick, do you have any suggestions for folks who are interested in trying this out, but maybe don't know which hooks they should try and disable?
Yeah, let me, you know what? I could take a look at the project and tell you which ones I ignored because I think it's only, for me, it was only 4 or 5 that I had to ignore. And you know what? I don't know if I have those rules on this computer.
Man, I hope hook info is in there.
That would be pretty funny, but I don't think so. I don't have that on this computer, so I can't tell you. I don't do the development for that project on here, but I'll put it in the show notes. But if I recall, it was definitely the search one, and I think only 1 or 2 others.
Fabulous. Well, Martin, thank you for bringing us another enlightening module of the week. And if folks wanted to suggest a module or just chat in general, how could they go about doing that?
We're always happy to talk about interesting projects for Module of the Week in the Talking Drupal channel of Drupal Slack, or folks can reach out to me directly as ManClue on all of the Drupal and social channels.
Fabulous. Thanks a lot.
See you next week.
See you next week.